to continue this journey of ideas, stories, and dialogue. My name is Har Naman, and I'll be hosting the sessions for the rest of the afternoon. We have an exciting lineup ahead with conversations that move across politics, technology, cinema, poetry, and the arts, each bringing a unique perspective to the festival. We now move to our session titled Nehru to Narendra, Encounters with the Titans of Indian Politics. India's political journey has been shaped by powerful personalities and defining moments. This conversation brings together voices who have closely observed and engaged with the changing landscape of Indian politics, offering perspectives on leadership, governance, and the stories behind the headlines. We are delighted to welcome Bhupendra Chaubey, one of India's leading television journalists. He began his career with NDTV in 1999 and later co-founded CNN IBN, now CNN News 18, in 2005. Over more than 2 decades, he has covered major national stories and 5 general elections, reporting from across the country. Known for his sharp political insight and engaging presentation style, he recently founded the Squirrel.in, an emerging digital news platform. Joining him is Aniruddh Gupta, founder and CEO of Kiddo, a global network of preschools and nurseries operating in the UK, US, and India. Before entering the education sector, he spent 14 years in investment banking with institutions such as UBS, Goldman Sachs, and Standard Chartered Bank. Inspired by fatherhood, he shifted his focus to building a global platform for early childhood education. He holds a BTech from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Kolkata. We also have with us Sandhir, an avid reader and a familiar presence at literary events, where he moderates author conversations that are thoughtful, engaging, and accessible. His interests lie in history, culture, and the stories that shape our understanding of society over time. Nainital holds a special place for him because of its landscape and rich cultural associations. Please join me in warmly welcoming Bhupendra Chaubey, Aniruddh Gupta, and Sandhir to the stage.
I must first and foremost congratulate Amitabh and his absolutely spectacular team, along with his wife, his dog, who we also had the privilege of meeting, and his son. This is the second edition of the Nainital Literature Festival that I'm attending, and it gives me absolute unbundled joy to be meeting so many new friends, new authors, and I can see that the journey of exchange of thoughts and ideas is headed in the right direction. So first and foremost, that caveat must be pointed out. Secondly, this topic, Nehru to Narendra, actually was to be in conversation with someone else, but that gentleman, unfortunately, he's injured, so he's not here. So here we are with our friends Aniruddh and
thank you.
and Sameer, who very bravely have decided that they will be taking the stage on this subject with us. If you really, in very simple terms, if you really look at the 2 names which are being spoken about, Nehru and Narendra Modi, Jawaharlal Nehru to Narendra Modi, it can't be more diverse than this. I mean, just imagine the pre-internet era, just imagine pre-AI. I mean, AI as a word probably wasn't even conceived at that time, right? And you're looking at leaders who took decisions which are even today shaping our destinies. So just imagine how great their journeys, how great their trajectories must have been. I sometimes feel that we make a big mistake, when with the benefit of the kind of tools of thinking that we have today at our disposal, when we start formulating opinions on leaders who existed then, way back, 40s, 50s, 60s. Somebody was talking about B.R. Ambedkar today. Ambedkar, just imagine, way back in 1950s, what did he speak about? He said that Vyakti Puja, worshipping an individual, is the biggest disservice that you can do to democracy. This is what Ambedkar said way back then. And here we are today, in 2026, across the world, from Donald Trump to Putin to India, the debate, that journey of the debate, that continues. So Aniruddh, let me begin with you first. Aniruddh spends a lot of his time in London. Let's start first with the decade of India's independence, 1947. What a high it must have been. I was only born in 76. as I'm sure
74.
74.
Likewise.
Likewise, yeah. So our whole introduction to that time period of India's independence is through what we may have seen in Doordarshan till about last 10 years when suddenly we're being fed a different narrative of how did we achieve our independence. Did we actually end up paying a huge cost to our independence? Yeah. Was it a mistake that there was Kashmir which was divided? Yeah. Was it a mistake for us to get into way back, I mean, 1950s, right? In 2026, we're asking this question. I mean, according to me, my own personal view, if you ask me, I think that's a ridiculous question. We can't be sitting in judgment in terms of what the great leaders did way back then. But it is what it is. So let's first start with that. You know, in 2026, when you look at the decade of India's independence, what are those thoughts which come to your mind? How do you look at that entire time period? Let's say 1947 to 1955 to 60.
I think what you said is exactly right. I mean, hindsight is great. We can all sit back now and criticize leaders in the 1940s and 50s for sins of omission and commission and Kashmir and so on. The first thing I think about is just how extremely difficult it must have been for people like Nehru and Patel and Gandhi and even Jinnah, for example, to navigate a period when the World War II had just ended. They were on the threshold of independence. The British Empire was collapsing. Everybody knew that. And they had to make very quick decisions about what to do with the subcontinent, with all the political pressures that they would have had from their own political parties and so on and so forth. And I mean, I would challenge anyone in this audience, put yourself in that situation and think about like what decisions you would have made and how many mistakes you would have made, right? I mean, we would have all screwed up spectacularly, I can guarantee you. So I think the first thing I think of is that we should be grateful and thankful that we had a crop of leaders who got it mostly right at independence. They didn't get everything right, but they got it mostly right. As Suhail said in his in the last session, the fact that we had Nehru has left us with a liberal outlook and a somewhat functioning democracy. And as a counterfactual, you just have to look at every other country that went independent at that point in time, right?
Samir, the word that he's using, democracy, right? We're a very proud democracy, yeah. And there is a debate which exists, which starts these days, on whether democracy is being weakened. So if I was to look at this entire journey, this entire time period from 50s to now, firstly, have we started to reinterpret, revisit the interpretation, the definition of democracy itself? I mean, way back in 40s, 50s, right? You didn't have access to the internet. The world was not what it is today. Today we say that the world has shrunk. So my definition of democracy today could also be getting shaped by what I'm seeing in the West. Were we at a similar position then in 50s and 60s? And would that not be looked at as as a very iconic tectonic moment of sorts? The way we looked at democracy then versus the way we look at democracy today.
Yeah, so for me, I think the decade after 1947, I would like to say that it was a decade of, say, purity, honesty. The people were more honest.
We're dishonest now. Say that. Huh?
Yeah, I would say that, yes. As a race, as a people.
As a polity, just as a polity or as a society? Would you say as a society
also,
today?
As a society also, I feel, this is my personal feeling, that we are dishonest. We might say we are nationalists, but I don't think we are.
We're hypocrites.
Yes, as a race, we are hypocrites, I feel. And at that time, when we had just got our independence, people were more nationalist. I think the politicians were very honest. I don't think there was much corruption at that time, I feel. And things were moving, right? So that is my sense of that decade. And regarding democracy, my feeling is that democracy, the party who's in power, right? They always want to remain in power, right? So for them, they would prefer it not to be a democracy, right? And they would like to be, what's that?
Forever in power.
That single party, China, Russia kind of thing, right? For the people, they want them to believe that we're in a democracy. But internally, I feel they would like to be a single party system.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought that Samir is moving towards. And we talk so much about nationalism versus pseudo-nationalism. Haven't come across too many references towards pseudo-nationalism as a phrase in that time period between 1950 to around about 1970, I would say. Pushpesh Pant is here, and I'm sure he'll correct me. We lost a war, right? I mean, there was a conflict with China. We ended up ceding some territory. But even then, the question was about strength versus weakness. This entire notion of who's a nationalist, who's a patriot, who's a pseudo-nationalist, all this, do we say that this is a byproduct of the internet era? As democracy has gotten more influenced by the internet, is this phraseology, pseudo-nationalism, is it a byproduct of the internet era of politics?
So I think a couple of things, right? My view again. What the internet era has done essentially has enabled everybody's views to be aired in a somewhat kind of flat public square, and for everybody to get their own followings, right? So, you might have a view that commands, 5% of the general population, but if you're very loud on Twitter or X or whatever, it's almost as if 30% of the population believes in that view, whether or not they actually do, right? And so I'm pretty sure that in the 1950s and 1960s, especially when the country lost the war with China, there would have been enough people during that time, and I think we just go back to yesterday's session with John on his book about the amalgamation of the princely states into India, right? I'm pretty sure there were enough people who were supporters of the princely states and who were saying this whole India concept is bullshit, right? And we'd rather be with Hyderabad or we'd rather be with this. They did not have a platform to air their views and make it known, right? And they would have been called whatever they would have been called today, right? So I think part of that is that. I think diversity of thought about what India is has always existed. I think you just have to go back to, articles and treatises written in the Western media around the time of Indian independence saying that, this is just a made-up country, it's going to fracture in 20 years, we give it 30 years, and so on and so forth, right? I think, to your point, what the internet era has done is it has enabled everybody's views to be aired, and whoever has the best algorithm or can propagate it the best, their views become more and more predominant, right, essentially.
This very interesting article was done by Stanford University, and it was titled "The Illusion of Thinking." So here we're talking about how the great leaders must have thought, and how democracy must have been shaped up in the pre-independent era versus the post-independent era. This article was actually highlighting the fact that what we believe is original thinking as of today is actually just a summation of various algorithms. So all the input to our mind today is happening because of what we're consuming through algorithms. Those algorithms have been created by certain, let's say, vested interests. We end up consuming the byproduct of those algorithms, and we think that this is original thinking. It's actually the illusion of original thinking. So therefore, does it not fill us with even greater admiration of what people were doing between 50s, 60s, 70s? I'm not just talking about politicians here. I'm talking about bureaucracy. I was asking Mr. Joshi today, who was telling me that he retired in 2011 as an IS officer. I mean, I was wondering that there is so much of criticism of the bureaucracy today, where stories are coming out that people have managed fake entries, to get into the IS. I had not heard of any such story, I must admit, and I've been in this business of media now over the last 2 decades and a half. I never heard, I don't know if any one of you ever heard of someone faking their credentials to get into the IS, right? So how things have changed so very dramatically between 50s to 2014 to 2024, and now here we are in 2026. So let me ask you, Samir, as a civilization, as a society, you say that we are hypocrites.
Yes, sir.
We've become more dishonest.
Yes, sir.
So let me take you up on that.
Yes, sir.
Why would you argue that there was greater honesty let's say in the pre-internet era, let's say till around about 1970s to 80s, since we are talking of India's decades journey, it's not as if that corruption wasn't there. Maybe we didn't have the tools. You know, it's not as if the allegations of corruption have not been levied against Jawaharlal Nehru himself. Yeah. Is it that we just did not have the tools to verify the allegations, and therefore maybe we continue to treat them with a certain degree of reverence earlier?
So with the internet, I feel that everyone has a voice, and it is a hidden voice, right? No one knows who's attacking the other person. You know, you're not in the forefront, and you can say anything about anyone, and no one can say anything to you because they don't know who you are. It's just you have an IP address and all that stuff. But if you were in the 50s or 60s, there was no internet. If you wanted to say something, you had to come out and say it against that person, right? You had to protest. Abhi protest jo hai wo internet pe hi ho rahe hain. There are no real protests as such. As Suhail sir said, I don't think anyone can speak like him. It's tough. I mean, anyone who, like he said, if you have a factory and then if you say something, then you had it, right? So he's an independent voice. He's done something amazing on this thing. So what I'm saying is like that, to protest like that requires guts now. And I think people were doing it at that time.
You can protest with anonymity today.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can protest through bots.
Yeah.
You can protest through, you know,
And
through
that
social
also you
media
don't know
handles.
who's protesting because those bots are also controlled by people. So you don't even know if the protest is real.
Yeah, just imagine, you know, let's turn our gaze to one of the most defining moments in our journey as a democracy. Imposition of emergency, for instance. Yeah. 1976, 1977. We are every year there is an anniversary of sorts of emergency which is marked. And there are newspaper editorials. The present day government, of course, wants to take that message out to the largest mass of people that never forget what happened, you know, way back in 1977. Today in 2026, Aniruddh, are we still impacted by what happened in emergency, or have we forgotten it? Is it now relegated to the bins of history, as they say?
Well, I mean, I think we're still impacted in a very different way. You know, what the emergency in 1975 was a curtailing of freedom of expression, was a curtailing of individual rights, was a curtailing of all rights, and people can make up their own views as to whether those rights are still there right now or not, right, or to what extent they're there. So to some extent, we're still impacted by that. I think that, and again, there's a personal opinion, I think that the lessons that should be drawn from the emergency have not been drawn from the emergency by
Like
the
what?
population at large.
Like what?
So, what was the fundamental lesson of emergency? That you should not allow your polity to become a kind of, to be held by an individual to such an extent that all your rights can be trampled upon whenever you want. Right? That is fundamentally the lesson of the emergency. I mean, that's why one should remember it. Has the Indian polity post-emergency from 1980 onwards done anything to actually address that? I don't think so. Right? I mean, have the institutions been strengthened to a level where they cannot be interfered by a strong political party? I don't think so. I mean, I live in London, and I can tell you how those institutions should actually work, right? So, there was the deputy prime minister who was, news broke out in the press that she had not paid £40,000 in taxes for some flat sheet purchased. Not only did she have to resign, but the police opened up a case on her. And the Crown Prosecution Service is going after her. And she was the deputy PM, right? Largest majority, one of the largest majorities in the history of Parliament. Very popular politician. That's how a real system should behave. I'm not sure it does out here, does it?
What you began with by this reference to an individual gaining more traction. I'm slightly conflicted, about this theory because, I mean, recently, many of us, I'm sure, follow cricket here. Gautam Gambhir, the Indian cricket team coach, yeah. We've just won the World T20 Championship, and Gautam Gambhir was on multiple platforms going around saying that individual milestones don't matter. What matters is a team. Now, it's in principle, in theory,
Yeah.
it's a very good line to make, right? But don't you think that whether it's sports or it's politics, in a team game, if an individual manages to rise above the team because of his or her sheer might,
Yes, sir.
yeah, why should that individual not be credited? So are we being unfair? Whether it was Bhimrao Ambedkar, who way back in the 50s took this position that Vyakti Puja, idol worship of an individual is bad for democracy, or it's Mr. Gambhir, who himself was a former politician, is a former politician, and now the head coach of the Indian cricket team from a sporting legacy. Whether it is politics or it's sports, I'm wondering whether we're being unfair to the merit of an individual simply because that individual may be standing head and shoulders above, above the rest of the team.
So what you're saying is right, but everyone knows, it feels right to say that, it's politically correct to say that it's the team effort, right? But everyone knows who that individual is. Like everyone knows Tendulkar, everyone knows Virat Kohli.
So why be
But it is
apologetic about it? I'm saying it's
That is a
almost as if that
language,
you have to
no?
be apologetic about it.
Yeah, so that's the language. So that's what the people want to hear. But people also know that this is the guy who performed, this is the hero. So everyone knows कि hero कौन है. But वो बोलते हैं कि हाँ movie जो है वो team effort से बनी. But hero तो वही था ना, अमिताभ बच्चन. सबको पता ही है. तो hero पता है कि बुमराह या संजू सैमसन थे. But team effort तो था ही sir.
So I just want to sort of clarify. When I said individual, I didn't mean individual in the strictest sense. I meant an individual system or political party, right? I mean, it need not have been Indira Gandhi. It could have been anyone. It was the Congress party that fundamentally imposed the emergency and did whatever it did. I mean, she couldn't have done everything on her own anyways, right? Nor can one individual person, because you need an entire cast of characters around you. You need the machinery of the party, you need the machinery of the government following you, all of that stuff. Otherwise, you don't have control. What I mean is that the lesson of the emergency should have been that you perhaps should not allow your polity to become open to becoming a single party state like China, right? And I think that fundamental lesson has not been learned.
I think that's a very, very important point that you make. And again, we hear so much about what's going on in Nepal. There's Gen Z protests, and Gen Z as a word in today's parliament is often looked down upon. People say no,
Yes, sir.
India's Gen Z is about mobile phones.
Yes, sir.
It's going to the mall. It's going to have a good time. It's not interested in politics. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know what your view is on that. Samir.
I don't know. My view is very individualistic. I mean, you cannot categorize all the people in the same way. There are kids who are doing exactly what you're saying they're doing, and there are kids who are not doing that, and they are doing brilliant stuff. You have people who are very young and you're doing startups. So you cannot categorize an entire 20% of the population in one way. Right, so I don't think it's right. It's not fair to do that because these are the guys who are going to take the country forward, and there are a lot of young people. And you can say that about our generation also. Yeah, we also had people who were failures, and we also had people who were very intelligent. So I think the same goes for Gen Z. These guys will come up in a very big way. They are going to be prime ministers, presidents from these group of people only. So if everyone in Gen Z is like that, so are we going to get screwed? I don't think so.
So let's look at the decade, 1980s till about 2000. Rajiv Gandhi got assassinated. Indira Gandhi got assassinated. Babri Masjid was demolished in 1992. Then towards the end of that decade, India stressed with coalition governments all the way up till 2014. When even in 14, by the way, I mean, we had a coalition government, but the formation of a single party, single individual-led polity, that came firmly into existence after a long gap, post Indira Gandhi, post the domination of the Gandhi family on the Congress's affairs in 2014. So let's look at the decade now between 2014 to 2024. And I think we've just about 5 minutes, so that's the last question that I'll have it, and then I'll throw the floor open if anyone has any comments or any clarification, any suggestions to make. So Aniruddh, just a quick thought from you. How have we changed? As a polity, Samir has taken the position we become more dishonest. And I use the word hypocrites because everything that I see around me from a political landscape, I mean, Nainital is incredible, outstanding. I love the people here. I love all the authors and all the friends who've come. You all speak with a certain purity of art, which is missing these days. So I must compliment everybody who's here. But Aniruddh, as a polity, how do you think that we become more transactional? Have we become more aggressive? Have we become more brazen? ज़्यादा सड़क छाप हुए हैं क्या हम as a polity?
Yeah, I think definitely more transactional. I think the one thing that the internet has done in a big way has, over the last, I guess, 15 odd years, has brought the world to India, right? So people can see how China is done and how people in Asia are living and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people want that kind of lifestyle for themselves, right? And when they come up against a state that's not being able to deliver it, they just do whatever they need to do it, essentially. And so, I guess 2010 or before that, like very few people in India actually had enough exposure to the outside world to make cogent comparisons with what was going on, right? I mean, now you've got people going to, and I personally think this is really intensified since a lot of people have started traveling to East Asia, because suddenly they have a point of comparison which was actually, roughly similar to India like a few decades ago, and they're like, well, these guys can do this, why can't we, right? So there are more demands, and I think the political kind of reaction to that has been to try and win by doing whatever the politicians need to do to win amongst this sort of dissatisfaction,
which often leads
right?
to deterioration of the principles. Okay, guys, thank you so much for.
Thank you, sir.
You want to
Thank
make a
you.
quick point?
Yeah,
And then
no,
I'll throw the
nothing.
floor
Yeah,
over.
just I was saying that the internet is a very good thing, right? But I feel people should be able to interpret it. The content on the media, if the people are given the right education, and then you can distinguish between what is right and what is wrong, you can use it in a better way.
Well, that's a topic for a separate debate, in
Yeah,
some sense,
yeah.
because then we'll get into fake news and what is genuine information and what is truth in post-truth world. Okay, yeah, you wanna? Okay, is somebody has a mic here? Saeed bhai.
Thank you. Very interesting conversation. Thank you for, there's so many things one learns. I dabbled a bit in politics myself. As an election manager, I assisted in 8 Lok Sabha elections and fought 1 MLA myself. I want to ask, it's just a statement. In a country where you're supposed to spend 95 lakhs even today for a Lok Sabha election, when all of us know that 8 to 10 to 12 crores is spent on a Lok Sabha seat by any party, every candidate. It's not one party. And huge amount of money. So when you win, you take an oath, a declaration that you have spent only 95 lakhs. So you begin your career with a lie. And I've never seen this being debated on any Indian channels or in media or written about. Shouldn't some change be brought in this?
That's
to
why I
start
use the
being
term
honest?
hypocrisy, sir, that we're hypocrites. But no, your point is well taken, and I'll tell you the problem there. This is a subject which has been written upon extensively. I myself, we've done programs. The problem is the election commission, which ultimately where the election expense is submitted, it does not have the real resource power which is required to audit that. So if I've said it's 95 lakhs, pretty much it'll end up being taken on face value. 10 cars, I'll say, are not mine. I mean, I haven't paid for them. They were just people who, randomly came along. That's what ultimately leads to this constant proposition of a lie. And I don't think it's 10 to 12 crores anymore. It's way, way beyond per Lok Sabha election.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is I think there's a matter for parliament and like total finance reform. And the politicians need to do it, right? I mean, you have a system like America where hundreds of millions of dollars are spent, but it's very transparent. Everybody knows where the money is coming from. Everybody knows where the money is being spent. There are rules around it. And people raise money and spend it. And, fortunately or unfortunately for America, that means only the rich people can actually, win. Fine. They've accepted that system, but it's transparent. Then you have like Britain, for example, where The laws are the same as India because all the laws are pretty same, right, between Britain and India. But they are enforced, and more importantly, the politicians and the people expect those laws to be adhered to. So it's also a social thing, I think, at the end of it, right? That if the society in general believes that you should not spend more than 95 lakhs on an election, then the person who is spending more should lose the election as well, because, as you said, they're starting the election with a lie, right? So effectively, it becomes it comes from the society, and the politicians come from us, right? So it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to, do I need to stand up?
No,
It's
that's
okay, yeah. So I just wanted to say to your point about the emergency and whether anything has changed, the entire judicial system actually pushed back against Indira Gandhi and ended that. And so a system that was put into place worked. And after the emergency, it was strengthened. But as it happens in all things, somebody uses it for reform and somebody uses it as an example that they want to follow. And what we're seeing right now is our people who are using it as an example to follow. They are not interested in reforming it. So I think that's a very important point to make. And second thing is that when you're talking about it becoming majoritarian in 2014, you rightly said, I think India as a whole has decided that they are undecided. And this is coming up again and again and again in politics. And we see that so much more now than before. It's also stepping away from the feudal mindset. And that's a lot to do with our constitution, because a lot of the people who were not of a certain caste, because a certain caste always allowed you a great amount of privilege, do not like that, just like you quoted B.R. Ambedkar. Just that.
Okay. No, I agree with you. You see, laws are meant to be used and abused. Examples are there to draw inspiration from, and to ensure that whatever happened in 75, I mean, there was a great Justice Khanna, right? I don't want to be taking any names here, but there's a judgment which was given by his son in the Supreme Court, and everybody was alluding to how the mighty have fallen. but that's for another day. Okay, do we have time for one more question? Then I'll wind up. Yeah.
We are discussing about the independence, then 1975, about personal liberties and everything, right? But over a gradual period of time, don't you think that the vast majority of our people have lost their independence? I mean to say, for example, the food chain. Today, our farmers, they are dependent on GMO seeds. Our farming is not possible without chemical fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, fungicides. So what are we doing to make the farmers independent of the chemical lobbies, the industries? Without them, it's not possible to do the farming today.
Yeah.
So that is a real issue. So I feel that over a period of time, we may discuss personalities, we may discuss these issues for an end, but are we really addressing the real issues in this country?
Yeah,
We have lost our independence. And similarly, the energy aspect also, in the food as well as energy, we have lost our independence. So till we do not reclaim our independence, even the leaders will not be independent.
Well, I'll give you a short answer. I'll give you a short answer to that, and then I'll wrap up. See, what has happened is that, and again, I lay the responsibility, I'm not using the word blame, at the doorstep of our illusion of thinking. As a society, large parts of this country, particularly in North India, have convinced themselves that we have arrived on the global stage. But as this war with Iran has shown, that there is a lot of distance that we need to cover. People may say that you become the fourth largest economy of the world, but please bear in mind, this fourth largest economy of the world is still taking care of 80 crore people in this country by giving them free food. Now that leads to a certain political dispensation and a certain metric of political success. When in each election, you are bound to give free money, free dole outs, you are not thinking of any long-term policy solution that you seem to be speaking about. But thank you. But thank you so much for being such a lovely audience and patient audience. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers for that insightful journey through India's political landscape and the many voices and experiences that have shaped its public life. As a gesture of our appreciation, may I now request Mr. Deepak Balani to kindly join us on stage to felicitate our speakers. Let's all give them a huge round of applause for such a beautiful and insightful session on our Indian political landscape.